And though her first flights as a commercial pilot were filled with learning curves and challenges, Mia's inner resolve never wavered. The girl who once gazed at clouds from a grassy field now navigated hundreds of tons of metal across turbulent skies, laying the foundation for legendary feats yet to come. Her story was only beginning, but the trajectory of her career, her instincts, and her courage promised something far greater than anyone around her could yet imagine. It was a gray, storm-laden evening when Mia Carson stepped into the cockpit of Flight 482, a routine regional route she had flown dozens of times. The sky was a canvas of swirling clouds, lightning crackling on the horizon. Passengers checked their phones, read magazines, and chatted quietly, unaware of the peril about to unfold. For Mia, flying was never routine. Each takeoff, climb, and descent demanded focus, yet this flight carried an unease even she could sense. Something in the rhythm of the engines, the subtle shift of the wind, hinted at a challenge ahead. The plane lifted smoothly, guided by Mia's steady hands, her co-pilot following every command with attentive precision. At cruising altitude, the cabin lights flickered slightly as turbulence rattled the fuselage. A soft, almost imperceptible vibration ran through the aircraft, but Mia's instincts kicked in. She monitored instruments, scanning gauges, comparing readings, and listening for anomalies. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, caught a fluctuation in the left engine's pressure indicator, a minor irregularity at first, but one she knew could escalate. She exchanged a brief glance with the co-pilot, her expression calm but alert. "Keep monitoring systems," she said quietly, masking the tension she felt. Minutes passed, and the small anomaly escalated into a full-scale emergency. The left engine failed completely, flames briefly licking the casing before automatic safeguards shut it down. The cabin shuddered violently. Panic surged as alarms blared, and passengers gripped their seats, eyes wide with fear. Mia's heart rate accelerated, but only for a fraction of a second. She had been trained for this. Years of simulation, countless emergency drills, an instinct honed by both technical mastery and a deep understanding of aircraft mechanics guided her every decision. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a minor technical issue," Mia announced calmly over the intercom, her voice steady and reassuring. "Please remain seated and fasten your seatbelts. We're handling the situation." There was no overstatement, no hint of panic, only quiet authority. Passengers clutched their armrests, some whispering prayers, while others stared blankly ahead, unsure of the severity. Yet for Mia, the situation was clear. They had only minutes to stabilize the aircraft and find a safe path to land. Every decision mattered. Every second counted. She immediately engaged emergency protocols, running through the mental checklist drilled into her since flight school. Communications with air traffic control were rapid but composed. She calculated fuel consumption on a single engine, checked glide ratios, and reviewed possible landing sites. The nearest airport was 45 miles away, through clouds, rain, and high winds. The turbulence intensified as she guided the plane through a narrow corridor between storm systems. Lightning illuminated the cockpit in intermittent flashes, casting fleeting shadows on the instrument panels. Yet Mia's hands moved with calm precision. The co-pilot assisted, following her commands flawlessly. Together, they executed engine shutdown procedures, disengaged non-essential systems, and redistributed weight for balance. Passengers felt the aircraft tilt slightly as they adjusted altitude and speed, unaware that their survival depended entirely on Mia's experience, preparation, and nerve. A brief moment of hesitation could have been fatal. Every adjustment was critical. A shift too sudden, a miscalculation in airspeed, or an underestimation of turbulence could result in catastrophe. But Mia's mind functioned like a machine. simultaneously calculating dozens of variables with flawless execution. As the aircraft approached the airport, the storm intensified. Rain lashed against the windows. Wind gusts rocked the fuselage, and visibility was reduced to mere yards. Most pilots would have considered diversion, or even risked a controlled ditching in open fields. Mia's confidence did not waver. Years of rigorous preparation, her innate sense of spatial awareness, and a seemingly preternatural understanding of aircraft mechanics guided her through the storm. She instructed the co-pilot to reduce speed incrementally, align with the runway, and maintain a shallow descent. The landing sequence was perilous. Every gust of wind pushed the plane slightly off course. Lightning flashed, illuminating terrified faces in the cabin. Mia's voice remained calm, a lifeline of assurance. She made micro-adjustments to the rudder, elevator, and throttle, correcting for wind shear and turbulence. The runway loomed ahead like a sliver of hope amid chaos. Sweat beaded her brow, but her hands never wavered. She reminded herself of every lesson learned, every emergency drill practiced, every flight that had brought her here. Years of preparation culminated in this single critical moment. Touchdown was tense, but precise. The aircraft skidded along the wet tarmac, wheels locking, brakes screeching against the slippery surface. Mia maintained control until the plane slowed to a safe roll, finally bringing the passengers to safety. A collective sigh of relief rippled through the cabin. Some passengers clutched each other, tears streaming. Others whispered quiet thanks. But Mia immediately focused on post-landing procedures, shutting down systems, guiding emergency crews, and ensuring every individual was safe. The danger was over, but the responsibility never ended until every life on board was accounted for. Of her heroism spread rapidly. Airlines hailed her skill. Local news stations ran segments praising her composure under extreme pressure, and aviation forums erupted in admiration. She had saved 236 lives in one harrowing flight, a feat few could imagine. Yet amidst the media frenzy, Mia remained humble. She credited her co-pilot, the crew, and years of preparation, never boasting or exaggerating her role. Her satisfaction came not from recognition, but from the knowledge that meticulous preparation, discipline, and calm judgment had preserved life. Behind the headlines, few knew the hidden story of Mia's expertise. Her instinctive ability to anticipate mechanical anomalies and navigate extreme conditions stemmed from an obscure but elite aviation program she had attended years earlier. Inspired by Top Gun techniques, she had learned advanced tactical maneuvers, rapid problem-solving under stress, and precision flying that bordered on military-grade skill. These lessons, long kept secret, were the invisible foundation beneath her heroics. Her commercial flight success was not just luck or training, it was the culmination of years of rigorous, elite preparation, discipline, and instinctual mastery. The aftermath was as challenging as the flight itself. Airlines reviewed her performance, recognizing her exceptional decision-making and calm under pressure. Passengers reached out, writing letters and calling the airline to express gratitude. Many admitted they had never imagined surviving such a harrowing experience, let alone with composure intact. Colleagues who had doubted her early abilities now looked at her with profound respect. Flight instructors and mentors called, praising her flawless execution. Yet Mia remained grounded, meticulously documenting her actions, reviewing procedures, and identifying areas for further improvement. Heroism in her eyes was never a static achievement. It was a continuous journey. Amid the public attention, Mia's personal reflection was quieter, but just as profound. She thought of every flight lesson, every early morning, every dollar saved for training, and every moment of persistence in the face of rejection. It all led to this point, the survival of 236 souls. She felt gratitude, not for herself, but for the guidance, mentorship, and countless hours of preparation that had made her capable of this feat. It was a culmination of a lifetime's devotion to excellence, a testament to perseverance and mastery in the face of chaos. By the following week, aviation circles were buzzing. Flight 482 became a case study, dissected for insight into pilot composure, technical skill, and emergency response. Young pilots studied Mia's decisions, trying to understand how she maintained calm while executing complex maneuvers under extreme stress. Her co-pilot publicly acknowledged her skill, describing moments when Mia anticipated turbulence, instrument anomalies, and wind shifts before they occurred. Her performance became a gold standard for both training and mentorship. Yet Mia's modesty endured. She refused interviews that focused on personal glory, redirecting attention to teamwork, training, and preparation. It was during these reflections that Mia realized something vital. Heroism was not innate, nor was it about bravery alone. It was preparation, discipline, and mastery in high-pressure situations that saved lives. Her early fascination with airplanes, her relentless study, her hours of practice, and her elite tactical training all converged in Flight 482. Each decision, each instinctive maneuver, was the result of deliberate cultivation of skill. The passengers' survival was a reward, yes, but the true achievement lay in the countless unseen hours that had made such survival possible. In the weeks following the flight, awards and accolades arrived, yet Mia accepted them quietly. Invitations to speak at aviation conferences came, and journalists requested interviews. Eager to understand how she had executed such a flawless emergency landing. While others were mesmerized by the spectacle of heroism, Mia's mind focused on the lessons. Preparation was everything. Teamwork was indispensable, and humility was paramount. She shared insights with young pilots, stressing that skill alone was insufficient without composure and continuous learning. Every word she spoke reinforced the principles that had guided her since her first flight, and in the solitude of her home, Mia reflected on a moment that no one else had witnessed, the split-second decisions that saved hundreds of lives. She remembered the flutter of fear, the calm rationality that replaced it, and the instinctive trust she placed in her training. In those moments, the years of preparation crystallized into action, revealing the essence of her capability. It was a revelation not just of technical proficiency, but of courage forged through discipline and dedication. She had faced chaos and emerged unbroken, with every life aboard Flight 482 intact. Flight 482 would later be remembered as one of the most remarkable commercial airline rescues in modern U.S. aviation history. Analysts, pilots, and enthusiasts would marvel at Mia Carson's composure, skill, and decision-making. But for her, the event was not about fame. It was a reaffirmation of her life's purpose: to master the skies, to prepare relentlessly, and to act decisively when lives depended on it. She had proven to herself, and quietly to the world, that excellence, courage, and preparation could overcome even the most daunting trials. The headlines proclaimed Mia Carson a hero. They celebrated her calm under pressure, the 236 lives she had saved, and the flawless landing of Flight 482. The world saw the spectacle, the final act of bravery, but few understood the foundation beneath it. Heroism, Mia knew, was never spontaneous. It was built in the quiet, often invisible hours of preparation, study, and repetition. While the public lauded her, she returned to the routines that had shaped her, rituals she considered far more critical than applause. Her true work always began behind the scenes. Early mornings had become sacred to Mia. Before dawn, she would enter the cockpit of a training simulator or review flight manuals, meticulously scanning every instrument, every system, every emergency protocol. The glow of overhead lights reflected off charts she had annotated hundreds of times, each note a personal insight into the inner workings of aircraft. She didn't approach these sessions casually. They were almost ritualistic, a disciplined meditation on skill and responsibility. To Mia, the hours of preparation were not just professional obligations. They were acts of devotion to the lives she would one day protect. Her evenings were similarly structured. After long flights and debriefings, she would often isolate herself in a quiet corner of the airline lounge or her small apartment. There, she studied aviation journals, reviewed maintenance logs, and analyzed simulations of possible emergencies. She replayed every takeoff, every landing, and every minor anomaly she had encountered, dissecting each decision she had made and imagining alternative outcomes. To outsiders, this might have seemed obsessive, even extreme. But for Mia, excellence required relentless scrutiny. Every lesson learned, every potential error anticipated, added to a reservoir of skill that could one day make the difference. Between life and death, Mia's approach to her work extended beyond technical skill. It encompassed leadership, communication, and mentorship. She believed a pilot's responsibility was not only to the aircraft, but also to the crew and passengers. Young co-pilots and flight attendants often sought her guidance, drawn to her calm authority and practical wisdom. She taught them how to anticipate turbulence, respond to system alerts, and communicate effectively under pressure. But she also emphasized emotional preparation, how to maintain composure, how to reassure passengers, and how to think clearly when fear threatened rational thought. These lessons were rooted in experience and rigor, not theory, and they resonated deeply with those she mentored. Her training regimen was extensive. Beyond simulator hours, she routinely volunteered for extra drills, emergency exercises, and cross-training with other departments. Maintenance logs, engine diagnostics, navigation charts, and weather analysis were all examined with painstaking attention. Mia was methodical. She left nothing to chance. The preparation was exhaustive because she understood the stakes. In the cockpit, there was no room for assumption, and she had learned that even the smallest oversight could escalate into catastrophe. Her meticulous nature, often invisible to passengers, was a safeguard that allowed her heroics to be executed with precision when real emergencies struck. Despite her public recognition, Mia's humility remained steadfast. Media interviews were carefully managed. She deferred praise to her co-pilots, crew, and the broader systems that ensured aviation safety. The cameras saw a composed, selfless hero, but they did not see the countless nights spent alone with manuals, the simulated crises she endured in preparation, or the moments of doubt she quietly overcame. To Mia, heroism was never about accolades. It was about mastery, preparation, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing she could meet any challenge. Fame was a byproduct, not the goal. Colleagues often marveled at her ability to remain calm in high-stress situations, but Mia's composure was the result of years of discipline, not innate temperament. She had cultivated a mental framework that allowed her to compartmentalize fear, analyze variables, and act decisively. This was the hidden engine behind Flight 482, the foundation that enabled her to respond instinctively and flawlessly when lives hung in the balance. The public did not see it, but every emergency maneuver, every split-second decision, had been anticipated countless times during these private hours of study and simulation. Her attention to detail extended to the aircraft itself. Before every flight, Mia would personally inspect the plane, checking systems, hydraulics, fuel levels, and mechanical integrity. While some pilots relied solely on maintenance crews, she believed that understanding the aircraft intimately was part of her responsibility. She memorized technical manuals, studied performance charts, and ran mental simulations of potential failures. Every system, from avionics to auxiliary power units, was catalogued in her mind. When Flight 482 faced mechanical failure, this preparation allowed her to diagnose and respond instinctively, turning what could have been disaster into a textbook rescue. Mia also nurtured a philosophy of continuous learning. Aviation was an evolving field, with new technologies, regulations, and challenges constantly emerging. She attended seminars, networked with industry experts, and studied innovations in aerodynamics and flight safety. Each new insight was incorporated into her mental toolkit, enhancing her ability to adapt to unforeseen circumstances. She approached learning not as a finite goal, but as an ongoing journey. Mastery was a process, not a destination, and Mia embraced it with relentless determination. Her mentorship extended beyond professional skill. She encouraged young pilots to confront doubt, fear, and self-limiting beliefs. Flying isn't just about knowing the controls, she would say. It's about knowing yourself. Confidence, focus, and discipline are your co-pilots, even more than the instruments. Her guidance was practical, rooted in personal experience, but it carried a deeper lesson. Preparedness and composure were inseparable from personal growth. Those she mentored learned not only to fly, but to cultivate resilience, awareness, and emotional intelligence, qualities essential for heroism. When crises arrived unannounced, Mia's life outside the cockpit remained quiet, almost ascetic, social. Events, leisure, and distractions were secondary to her mission. Friends were often surprised by her singular focus, but she valued mastery above social recognition. Her personal sacrifices were deliberate choices, not burdens. Every hour spent in preparation, analysis, or mentorship contributed to a skill set that could one day save lives. In the quiet of her apartment, she would reflect on her journey, tracing the evolution from the girl who built model planes in a sunlit field to the professional who could command hundreds of tons of metal through storms with precision. Even with the accolades and recognition from Flight 482, Mia continued her routines without deviation. She believed that skill without ongoing discipline was fleeting. She returned to simulators, ran emergency scenarios, and drilled procedures each session, sharpening instincts honed over years. Preparation for her was an ethical responsibility. It was a promise to herself, her crew, and every passenger, that she would be ready when the moment of truth arrived. Heroism was not a single act. It was a lifestyle, forged in diligence, practice, and unyielding commitment. This relentless preparation and discipline also concealed a secret advantage. Mia's instincts, precision, and calm decision-making were informed by an elite aviation program she had attended years earlier, a program modeled after Top Gun tactics. Few civilians had such training, and she had kept it hidden, blending seamlessly into the commercial aviation world. Yet the lessons of formation flying, tactical maneuvers, and rapid problem-solving had become an invisible foundation beneath her commercial expertise. The public saw only the hero of Flight 482, but the roots of her capability stretched deep into an elite, disciplined past. Her ability to manage crises, mentor others, and navigate complex systems made her both exceptional and understated. Flight crews learned to trust her implicitly. Passengers felt reassured by her calm presence, often without realizing why. Colleagues marveled at her foresight, yet she never boasted or sought recognition. Preparation for Mia was sacred. It was both practical and philosophical, a way of life that merged technical skill with character, instinct, and composure. Behind the scenes, she built the scaffolding that allowed heroism to emerge naturally when tested. And so, while the public celebrated the dramatic landing of Flight 482, Mia returned to her quiet routines, unshaken by fame. She refined, studied, mentored, and prepared understanding that heroism was fleeting without foundation. She knew that one day, the skills she honed in these hours would be demanded again, perhaps under even more harrowing circumstances. Every check, every simulation, every late-night review of flight procedures was a thread in the intricate tapestry of survival. Precision and excellence she wove daily. Mia Carson's story behind the scenes was not just about preparation. It was about philosophy, discipline, and dedication. While the public glimpsed heroism in dramatic moments, the invisible hours of effort, learning, and self-improvement were the true narrative. Flight 482 was an outcome of a life lived in relentless pursuit of mastery, a testament to the unseen, labor that underpins visible courage. For Mia, the quiet routines of diligence, mentorship, and technical excellence were just as vital as the heroics the world celebrated. And as she gazed at the sky from the small balcony of her apartment, Mia reflected on the delicate balance of preparation and action. The clouds she once admired as a child were now arenas of responsibility and challenge. Every storm she navigated, every system anomaly she anticipated, and every emergency she simulated were pieces of a larger journey, one that transformed a determined small-town girl into an aviator capable of extraordinary heroism. Behind every celebrated act lay countless unseen hours, and Mia embraced that truth as the essence of her craft, her character, and her life. Few people knew the truth about Mia Carson's skills. The public celebrated her heroism during Flight 482, yet the precision, calm, and instincts she displayed were rooted in something far deeper, a secret chapter of her life, forged in the shadows of elite military-style training. Before she became a commercial pilot, Mia had been recruited into a confidential aviation program inspired by Top Gun, one of the most rigorous flight courses in the United States. The program demanded technical mastery, physical endurance, mental resilience, and strategic thinking that pushed even seasoned pilots to their limits. Mia had kept her participation a closely guarded secret. The program emphasized advanced formation flying, rapid decision-making, and combat-inspired simulations, all designed to develop instinctive responses to extreme aerial scenarios. These exercises were far removed from the routines of commercial aviation. They demanded split-second judgment under pressure, mastery of aircraft in highly volatile conditions, and the ability to anticipate and counteract unpredictable variables. While most civilians never encountered such intensity, Mia had thrived, absorbing lessons that would later become invisible scaffolding for her commercial heroics. The program itself was grueling. Each day began before sunrise with physical conditioning running, strength training, and endurance exercises to simulate the stress pilots faced under extreme G-forces. In the simulator, Mia faced scenarios of catastrophic engine failures, rapid-fire instrument malfunctions, and simulated aerial combat, all designed to test composure and decision-making. Her instructors pushed her to failure repeatedly, only to demand that she rise immediately and execute flawless maneuvers. Fear was a constant companion, yet the program taught her to manage it, to convert adrenaline into focus, and to act decisively even when lives or simulated lives depended on her skill. Advanced flight exercises were the most revealing. Mia learned precision formation flying, coordinating with other pilots in tight patterns at high speeds. Every maneuver required acute spatial awareness, split-second communication, and unwavering concentration. One miscalculation could result in simulated collisions or failed exercises. These drills sharpened not only technical skill, but also situational awareness, anticipation, and instinctive response. The program instilled in Mia the understanding that mastery was not a matter of reflex alone, but the integration of mind, body, and machine, a synergy that would later define her heroic actions in commercial aviation. Perhaps The most transformative part of the program was the mental training. Instructors subjected pilots to high-stress decision-making simulations while restricting information, introducing ambiguity, and simulating emergencies that could not be solved by rote procedure. Mia learned to trust her instincts, evaluate incomplete data, and make rapid, calculated decisions. She developed a mental framework capable of handling complexity, risk, and uncertainty simultaneously, a skill that would allow her to navigate Flight 482's emergency with exceptional composure. Where most pilots relied on step-by-step procedures, Mia had internalized a more advanced, anticipatory approach that, in addition to tactical flying, Mia trained extensively in aircraft systems and mechanical response. Simulators exposed her to hypothetical engine failures, hydraulic malfunctions, and avionics breakdowns under extreme conditions. She memorized every system, every contingency, and every sequence of corrective action. Unlike typical commercial training, which focused primarily on procedure, this program demanded intuitive understanding. Mia had to know how the aircraft behaved in any conceivable scenario, not just by the book, but instinctively. This knowledge became second nature, embedded into her reflexes, preparing her for the unexpected challenges that would define her commercial career. Mia's training also emphasized leadership under pressure. She was placed in scenarios where she had to coordinate multiple aircraft, instruct inexperienced pilots, and manage critical decisions affecting simulated lives. Communication, decisiveness, and composure were as crucial as technical skill. These exercises honed her ability to remain calm, issue clear instructions, and maintain control even in chaos, a skill that would later manifest in Flight 482, where she guided crew and passengers with remarkable authority and reassurance. Leadership, the program taught her, was inseparable from skill and preparation. The secrecy of the program added an additional layer of intensity. Mia could not speak of her training to family, friends, or future employers. Her accomplishments existed only within a closed circle of instructors and fellow trainees. The isolation was both a challenge and a blessing. She learned to rely entirely on her abilities to internalize lessons without external validation and to develop confidence in her judgment alone. This cultivated independence, self-reliance, and mental resilience, which would later define her professional persona in the commercial aviation world. During her time in the program, Mia faced moments of extreme doubt. Some exercises were nearly impossible, testing physical endurance, mental agility, and technical mastery simultaneously. There were nights when fatigue threatened to overpower her, when she questioned whether she was capable of completing the course. Yet she persisted, driven by an unshakable sense of purpose. She reminded herself that the skills she cultivated were not just academic exercise, as they were life and death simulations, preparing her for realities that could not be predicted. These experiences built a foundation of courage and resilience. Invisible yet unbreakable. Graduation from the program marked a turning point. Mia emerged not just as a skilled pilot, but as a strategist, capable of analyzing scenarios in real time and responding with precision. She possessed a mastery that few civilian pilots could imagine, a combination of instinct, preparation, and technical knowledge that bordered on extraordinary. Yet she did not flaunt her background. In commercial aviation, she allowed her actions to speak for themselves. Her heroism, when it came, would appear almost effortless, but it was the product of years of relentless training and discipline. The integration of this elite training into her commercial career was seamless but subtle. Maneuvers that seemed instinctive during emergencies were rooted in precise techniques learned under extreme stress. Situational awareness, often described by colleagues as uncanny, was cultivated through formation flying and tactical simulation. Crisis management evident in Flight 482, had been drilled into her psyche repeatedly, creating mental pathways that allowed rapid, flawless decision-making. What appeared as calm composure in high-stakes scenarios was, in truth, the manifestation of highly trained instincts, honed over years in one of the nation's most challenging aviation programs. Beyond technical skill, the Top Gun-inspired program instilled a philosophy of humility and responsibility. Mia learned that skill alone was insufficient. The greatest pilots combined mastery with ethical judgment, respect for the lives in their care, and relentless self-improvement. She carried this philosophy into her commercial career, mentoring colleagues, guiding passengers, and maintaining rigorous standards of preparation. The foundation of heroism, she understood, was not bravery in isolation, but the integration of skill, foresight, and moral responsibility, a principle that would define her legacy. Years later, the significance of this secret training became clearer. When F-22 pilots discovered traces of her program, they marveled at her abilities, connecting her commercial heroics to elite tactical experience. They saw what the public could not: a pilot whose skill was cultivated in the most exacting environments, whose instincts were honed to perfection, and whose calm under pressure was the product of disciplined, top-tier training. The hidden legacy, once invisible, began to emerge, adding a new dimension to her reputation and reshaping the perception of her heroism. Mia never revealed her secret lightly. She understood that disclosure could overshadow the collaborative nature of her commercial achievements or raise questions about her humility. She allowed her performance to speak instead, trusting that the truth of her skill would eventually surface in the acknowledgement of colleagues and industry peers. The Top Gun legacy, invisible yet potent, had become an integral part of her identity, shaping her decision-making, composure, and leadership. The lessons of the program continued to influence her daily routines. Every flight, whether routine or critical, was informed by principles learned in those early years of elite training. She rehearsed emergency scenarios in her mind, considered contingencies, and maintained acute awareness of every instrument, system, and environmental variable. Her mentorship reflected this philosophy. She trained colleagues not just in procedure, but in the mindset, instincts, and discipline that defined her own capabilities. The hidden program had not only forged her abilities, it had cultivated a framework for passing knowledge to others, ensuring the next generation of pilots could approach flight with excellence. Mia's secret training also shaped her personal philosophy. She came to view challenges not as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth. Fear, unpredictability, and chaos were not threats to avoid, they were situations to analyze, master, and transform into successful outcomes. This mindset, reinforced by the rigorous Top Gun-inspired exercises, allowed her to approach Flight 482 with unwavering confidence, calm, and competence. The public marveled at her composure, unaware that the foundation had been laid long before the aircraft ever left the ground. Ultimately, the Top Gun legacy was more than technical mastery. It was the cultivation of resilience, foresight, and moral responsibility. It transformed Mia from a skilled commercial pilot into an extraordinary aviator capable of heroism under extreme pressure. The secret of her abilities lay not in luck or instinct alone, but in years of disciplined, elite training designed to push her limits, refine her judgment, and instill unwavering confidence. When the world witnessed her heroism, they saw the outcome. The foundation remained invisible, yet it was the cornerstone of her extraordinary journey. Mia Carson's secret was now part of her legend. It connected her past to her present, linking childhood fascination, relentless commercial preparation, and elite tactical training into a seamless story of skill, courage, and mastery. While the public celebrated Flight 482, she quietly carried the knowledge of what had truly made her capable: years of rigorous secret training that few could comprehend. Her Top Gun legacy was a hidden engine, propelling her to heights of heroism and ensuring that her actions would be both precise and unforgettable. Asterisk. Even after years in commercial aviation, Mia Carson never let a day pass without revisiting the lessons instilled by the elite Top Gun-inspired program. The training had been more than technical, it was transformative. Each simulator session, each high-intensity exercise, and every scenario designed to push her beyond fear had created a framework of excellence she relied on daily. While commercial pilots often faced emergencies rarely, Mia approached every flight as a potential test of skill and judgment. The foundation of her heroism was invisible, yet omnipresent, guiding her hands, her decisions, and her composure when chaos struck. The program had taught her the art of anticipation. In the skies, threats emerged in milliseconds. Sudden turbulence, system anomalies, engine failures. Most pilots reacted sequentially, moving from problem to problem. Mia had learned to predict outcomes several steps ahead, visualizing the cascade of potential challenges and preparing responses in advance. This mental rehearsal, ingrained from thousands of simulator hours, gave her an almost preternatural sense of control. When Flight 482's left engine failed, she did not merely react, she anticipated, calculated, and executed maneuvers that ensured the survival of 236 souls. One of the most rigorous components of the program was combat-inspired formation flying. Trainees were required to navigate multiple aircraft in high-speed, high-risk environments, often with limited visibility. These exercises demanded flawless coordination, precise spatial awareness, and split-second adjustments. Mia excelled, mastering the delicate balance between intuition and technical precision. In commercial aviation, the stakes were different lives of passengers rather than simulated combat, but the principle was identical. Precision under pressure, unwavering focus, and the ability to act decisively when a fraction of a second determined outcomes. Beyond technical skill, the program emphasized decision-making under extreme cognitive load. Trainees were presented with layered emergencies, engine failures compounded by instrument malfunctions, severe weather, and simulated crew errors. They were required to make critical decisions with incomplete data, relying on both intuition and rigorous procedural knowledge. Mia's capacity to compartmentalize, prioritize, and execute multiple actions simultaneously was cultivated in these exercises. In Flight 482, every action, from stabilizing the plane to communicating with air traffic control, was executed with this mental framework, enabling her to transform potential disaster into a controlled, successful landing. Physical endurance was another cornerstone. Pilots endured high-G maneuvers, extended periods of simulated emergency flight, and grueling physical training to condition their bodies against fatigue. Strength, reflexes, and stamina were inseparable from mental acuity. Mia's preparation was holistic. The combination of body and mind ensured that under real emergency conditions, she remained sharp, coordinated, and responsive. The grueling program had taught her to harness adrenaline as a tool rather than a distraction, channeling stress into focus and precision. Mentorship was integral to the program. Senior pilots guided trainees not just in technical skill, but in mindset, strategy, and leadership. Mia absorbed lessons about trust, teamwork, and moral responsibility. A pilot's success was never solitary. It depended on crew coordination, mutual awareness, and ethical decision-making. These lessons translated directly to her commercial career. During Flight 482, she demonstrated not only mastery of the aircraft, but leadership over crew and passengers, ensuring confidence and compliance under extreme conditions. Her effectiveness stemmed from years of observing, learning, and internalizing the principles of elite mentorship. The program also cultivated humility alongside skill. Success required acknowledgement of limits, continuous self-assessment, and relentless improvement. Trainees were routinely challenged with scenarios designed to expose overconfidence. Mistakes were analyzed thoroughly, and failure was reframed as opportunity. Mia internalized this philosophy. Public recognition, media praise, and accolades could never substitute for personal mastery. She viewed each flight as a continuation of her training, every routine procedure as an opportunity to refine skills, and every challenge as a test of preparedness. Heroism in her eyes was the product of relentless self-discipline rather than spontaneous courage. Mia's secret training remained a silent advantage in commercial aviation. Colleagues admired her calm and instinctive expertise, but were unaware of the origins of her skill. For passengers, her demeanor appeared effortlessly reassuring. Yet every gesture, every decision, was informed by elite tactical training. Even in routine flights, she simulated potential failures in her mind, practicing responses, visualizing contingencies, and maintaining readiness for anomalies. This invisible scaffolding allowed her to operate at a level far beyond what most civilian pilots could achieve, bridging the gap between routine competence and extraordinary heroism. The program also instilled a philosophy of adaptability. Conditions in the air were unpredictable. Weather could change abruptly. Systems could fail without warning, and human error was always a factor. Mia learned to remain fluid in approach, integrating structured procedure with instinctive improvisation. She was trained to make critical decisions when no manual provided guidance, relying on experience, technical knowledge, and intuition. Flight 482 exemplified this philosophy. Her ability to adapt instantaneously to cascading emergencies highlighted the fusion of training and instinct that defined her Top Gun legacy. Furthermore, the training emphasized observation and situational awareness. Pilots were conditioned to detect subtle anomalies in instruments, aircraft behavior, and environmental conditions, often before they manifested as crises. Mia developed an almost anticipatory sense of flight dynamics. On Flight 482, her recognition of the left engine's initial fluctuation allowed her to preemptively implement corrective action, preventing the issue from escalating. It was this proactive approach, honed in secret years earlier, that transformed potential catastrophe into a successful rescue operation. Beyond skill, the program reinforced the moral responsibility inherent in piloting. Each exercise included simulated life-or-death decisions, instilling a deep awareness of the stakes inherent in aviation. Mia internalized the principle that technical excellence must always be paired with ethical judgment and unwavering focus on preserving life. When she addressed passengers during Flight 482, her calm, measured voice carried both authority and empathy, a reflection of years of preparation emphasizing not just what to do, but why it mattered. Heroism, she understood, required both mastery and moral clarity. Despite her extraordinary abilities, Mia's approach remained grounded. She never sought fame, recognition, or validation. Her Top Gun-inspired training had taught her that skill, without humility, was hollow. Success was measured not in accolades, but in outcomes saved lives, functional procedures, and effective leadership. When Flight 482 concluded safely, she did not revel in public admiration. Instead, she immediately returned to routine, analyzing systems, reviewing responses, mentoring colleagues, and preparing for the next challenge. This consistency was the invisible engine that enabled repeated excellence and built the reputation that would later astonish F-22 pilots. Mia's secret was more than tactical training. It was a mindset. The rigorous preparation, relentless practice, and ethical framework instilled in her created a pilot capable of extraordinary action without hesitation. She had internalized a principle vital to heroism. Mastery emerges from preparation, not improvisation. Every moment, every simulation, and every emergency exercise she endured was an investment, compounding into instinctive ability and composure under extreme conditions. The Flight 482 rescue was the first visible manifestation of decades of disciplined cultivation, the public's glimpse into the hidden world that had shaped her extraordinary competence. As the years progressed, Mia carried this hidden advantage into every facet of her aviation career. Her co-pilots noticed subtle differences. She anticipated turbulence before instruments recorded it, recognized potential mechanical issues in advance, and executed precise maneuvers seemingly without effort. Passengers trusted her instinctive calm, while airline management marveled at her performance under scrutiny. Yet few outside her closest colleagues understood the source, a Top Gun-inspired legacy of elite preparation, tactical mastery, and disciplined resilience, honed in secret to a level few pilots could approach. The revelation of her secret training would eventually astonish the elite military community. F-22 pilots, trained in the highest standards of aerial combat and tactical operations, would later recognize elements of the same principles in her commercial flights. They saw what the public could not, a pilot whose calm, precision, and foresight were not simply natural talent, but the product of elite instruction, rigorous discipline, and a relentless pursuit of mastery. Her commercial heroics were rooted in a foundation few could match, bridging civilian and tactical aviation in an unprecedented way. Even today, Mia's Top Gun-inspired training remained her guiding principle. Every flight, every mentorship session, and every emergency scenario reflected lessons learned years earlier in secrecy and rigor. The hidden legacy of elite preparation defined her career, informed her decision-making, and ensured that when real crises occurred, she could respond with exceptional competence. Flight 482 was not an isolated miracle. It was the culmination of years of relentless, disciplined cultivation that blended skill, instinct, and ethical responsibility into a seamless framework for heroism. In private moments, Mia reflected on the duality of her life, the visible heroism celebrated by the public, and the invisible disciplined training that enabled it. The Top Gun legacy was more than technique. It was character, foresight, and moral clarity embedded in every action she took. This hidden foundation allowed her to act decisively in moments of extreme danger, ensuring that heroism was not luck, but a natural consequence of preparation, mastery, and responsibility. It was, in every sense, the secret engine behind her extraordinary achievements. It was a quiet morning at Nellis Air Force Base, the desert air crisp and dry, when the first rumors reached the flight line. F-22 Raptor pilots, some of the most elite aviators in the United States, had begun whispering about a civilian pilot whose skills rivaled, and in some cases exceeded, their own. The story of Mia Carson and Flight 482 had already captured national attention, but within the military community, her heroism was seen not merely as luck or competence. It was a signal of something far deeper, exceptional, almost unprecedented skill honed in a unique, secretive program. The pilots initially approached the reports with skepticism. Commercial aviators, they assumed, might demonstrate composure in emergencies. But the F-22 community knew that elite tactical flying demanded instinct, foresight, and technical mastery at levels few could achieve. When briefings began referencing her precise decision-making, her anticipatory judgment, and the flawless execution of maneuvers during Flight 482, curiosity turned to intrigue. Could a civilian pilot truly display the kind of split-second high-stakes decision-making they trained for in combat simulations? The answer, they would discover, was both extraordinary and humbling. Mia's reputation began to circulate through military channels. Flight recordings were analyzed in training sessions. Flight data logs dissected by instructors and tactical Analysts. Observers noted her ability to manage multiple variables simultaneously: turbulence, mechanical anomalies, crew coordination, and passenger safety, all executed with precision under pressure. For pilots accustomed to high-intensity aerial combat, her performance was unusual in its combination of instinctive skill, calm authority, and flawless technical execution. She had managed a real-world scenario with stakes comparable to top-level military simulations, and she had done so without the advantage of combat-trained aircraft. Curiosity soon turned into direct observation. The Air Force invited Mia to participate in an evaluation exercise, nominally as a civilian consultant. They were discreet, careful not to disclose her past training to others, and wanted to assess her skills on their terms. The invitation was unusual. Civilian pilots rarely interacted directly with F-22 teams in operational simulations. Mia accepted, viewing the opportunity not as validation, but as a chance to further test her abilities. She understood that the stakes were not merely personal. Her performance would demonstrate the practical application of decades of preparation in both civilian and elite tactical contexts. The first exercise placed her in a simulator designed to replicate high-speed aerial combat conditions. Pilots maneuvered at supersonic speeds, facing multiple adversaries and unpredictable environmental challenges. Mia, accustomed to commercial aircraft but trained in Top Gun-inspired techniques, demonstrated uncanny precision. Her movements were smooth, anticipatory, and strategic. She adjusted for simulated threats milliseconds before they appeared, coordinated with other pilots effectively, and executed complex maneuvers flawlessly. Observers were astonished. Here was a civilian pilot operating at the level of the most elite F-22 aviators. After the simulation, debriefings revealed what had impressed the pilots most: Mia's situational awareness and anticipatory decision-making. While most pilots relied on reactive measures, she demonstrated predictive analysis, anticipating adversaries' moves and system responses before they occurred. This mirrored the secretive Top Gun-inspired program she had completed years earlier. But within a civilian context, her skills were disguised as instinctive competence. For the F-22 pilots, it was clear that her success was not luck. It was the product of rigorous preparation, training, and disciplined mental frameworks. The Air Force arranged additional exercises, including live demonstrations and tactical scenarios designed to test her adaptability. Mia's performance remained flawless. She navigated unexpected system failures, weather challenges, and rapid maneuvering scenarios with composure, authority, and precision. The pilots observed her ability to integrate multiple streams of information simultaneously: instrument readings, environmental conditions, and team coordination into cohesive, effective action. Every move, every decision, reflected a level of mastery that few in the room had encountered outside elite military training. Word of Mia's abilities spread quickly through the F-22 community. Her reputation evolved from civilian pilot hero to an exceptional aviator whose skills bordered on military-grade expertise. Pilots who had trained for years in supersonic combat acknowledged her instincts, precision, and foresight as extraordinary. They marveled at the subtle cues she detected and the anticipatory adjustments she made, details that even seasoned tactical pilots sometimes overlooked. The combination of technical skill, leadership, and composure set her apart. Mia was no longer simply the hero of Flight 482. She was a figure whose expertise demanded recognition among the nation's most elite aviators. The Air Force arranged for Mia to fly in an F-22 as part of a controlled familiarization exercise. The aircraft was radically different from commercial planes: supersonic, highly maneuverable, and equipped with cutting-edge systems designed for combat. Mia adapted quickly. Her previous training allowed her to intuitively understand flight dynamics, anticipate system responses, and integrate complex data streams. The F-22 pilots who initially approached her with skepticism found themselves in awe. She navigated complex maneuvers with precision, executing turns, climbs, and rapid altitude changes as if the aircraft were an extension of her own body. A particularly intense exercise, simulating multiple adversaries in high-speed scenarios. Mia demonstrated what one instructor described as combat-level instinct fused with methodical strategy. Her ability to assess threats, coordinate maneuvers, and maintain composure under simulated fire showcased the full spectrum of her Top Gun-inspired training. While the pilots recognized the uniqueness of her civilian perspective, they also saw parallels with their own rigorous combat preparation. Mia's performance blurred the line between civilian skill and elite military expertise, demonstrating that disciplined preparation could yield extraordinary results in any aerial environment. Beyond technical skill, her leadership and calm under pressure impressed the F-22 pilots. Exercises often introduced variables designed to disrupt team cohesion, including sudden emergencies, simulated mechanical failures, and environmental hazards. Mia remained unflappable. She communicated clearly, issued precise commands, and coordinated effectively with the team, ensuring that objectives were met safely and efficiently. These qualities, rare even among highly trained military pilots, underscored her unique combination of instinct, preparation, and ethical responsibility. The F-22 pilots quickly recognized her as an exceptional leader, capable of performing at the highest levels under pressure. The evaluations culminated in a debriefing session, where senior pilots and instructors acknowledged the extraordinary nature of Mia's abilities. They analyzed her decisions, anticipating the thought processes and risk assessments underlying every maneuver. Even in comparison with the best-trained military aviators, her skill, composure, and anticipatory judgment were remarkable. The combination of Top Gun-inspired preparation, commercial experience, and disciplined mental frameworks had created a pilot capable of feats few could replicate. Mia Carson was no longer merely a civilian hero. She was a living testament to the power of rigorous training and relentless preparation. Mia, however, remained humble throughout the process. She did not boast of her abilities, nor did she seek recognition. Her focus remained on mastery, preparation, and mentorship. She understood that skill alone was insufficient. Leadership, ethical judgment, and composure were equally critical. Her interactions with F-22 pilots reflected a balance of confidence and humility, earning their respect not through words, but through demonstrated ability. By the end of the evaluation period, she had won the admiration of one of the nation's most elite aviation communities. The F-22 pilots also began to understand the depth of her secret, Top Gun-inspired training. Certain maneuvers, anticipatory adjustments, and problem-solving strategies mirrored advanced military simulations that most civilians could never access. These insights prompted discussions within the Air Force about the potential integration of civilian talent into specialized training programs, highlighting Mia's unique contribution to both commercial and tactical aviation. She had demonstrated that civilian pilots, when equipped with rigorous preparation and elite training, could achieve feats previously thought exclusive to military aviators. In the weeks following the evaluation, Mia's presence in the F-22 community became more prominent. She participated in advanced simulations, advised on pilot preparation strategies, and offered insights drawn from both her commercial experience and elite training. Her influence extended beyond demonstrations. She contributed to refining tactics, safety protocols, and mentorship approaches. Pilots recognized that her combination of preparation, instinct, and composure offered a new model of excellence, one that bridged civilian and military aviation, proving that heroism and skill were cultivated through dedication, discipline, and mental rigor Despite the growing attention, Mia remained focused on the essence of her craft. Fame, admiration, and recognition were secondary to preparation, mastery, and the preservation of life. Her collaboration with F-22 pilots reinforced her understanding of the continuum of skill, from foundational preparation to real-world application, from instinctive decision-making to leadership under pressure. The experience deepened her appreciation of the responsibilities inherent in aviation, emphasizing that heroism was not a singular event, but the product of a lifetime of disciplined practice. For Mia, the acknowledgement by F-22 pilots was gratifying, but it was never the ultimate goal. She measured success not in accolades, but in competence, preparedness, and the ability to act decisively under pressure. The recognition from elite military aviators validated years of secret, intense preparation, yet it also reinforced her philosophy. True mastery exists at the intersection of discipline, foresight, skill, and ethical responsibility. The F-22 community's acknowledgement was a milestone, not a destination, a confirmation that her Top Gun legacy had prepared her for extraordinary action. As the evaluation concluded, Mia returned to commercial aviation with renewed confidence, enriched experience, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing her abilities had been tested against the most exacting standards in the world. Her secret, once invisible, had now earned the respect of elite pilots. Yet she continued her routines, mentoring colleagues, refining procedures, and preparing for future challenges. The Flight 482 rescue, her hidden Top Gun training, and now the recognition by F-22 pilots had solidified her reputation as one of the most skilled, composed, and prepared aviators in the nation. Mia Carson's journey had traversed small town beginnings, commercial mastery, elite secret training, and now military acknowledgement. She had demonstrated that heroism was not luck, but the culmination of preparation, skill, discipline, and ethical responsibility. While the public remembered the dramatic landing of Flight 482, the elite aviation community recognized the deeper truth. A civilian pilot, meticulously trained, disciplined, and tested, could achieve levels of skill and composure rivaling the best in the nation's Air Force. Her legacy was now firmly established, bridging worlds few had imagined possible. Asterisk, the story of Mia Carson had already traveled far, from the cockpit of Flight 482 to military hangars where F-22 pilots marveled at her skill. Now, it began to capture the imagination of the entire nation. News outlets, aviation magazines, and television programs sought her insights, interviews, and analysis. Yet Mia remained the same disciplined, grounded pilot she had always been. Public attention, while flattering, was never the motivation. For her, recognition was secondary to preparation, skill, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that her expertise had saved lives. The national spotlight brought scrutiny, but also opportunity. Aviation schools and universities reached out, requesting lectures and mentorship programs. Government aviation safety boards invited her to contribute to policy discussions. Each invitation Mia considered carefully. She wanted her presence to be meaningful, not performative. She focused on imparting lessons drawn from years of preparation, technical mastery, situational awareness, anticipatory decision-making, and the integration of ethical responsibility with skill. She emphasized that heroism was the product of disciplined training, not chance, and that excellence in aviation required relentless attention to detail and continuous improvement. Mia's mentorship programs became widely respected. She guided young pilots through both technical and mental training, helping them cultivate composure under pressure. Students marveled at her ability to translate complex principles into actionable guidance. She emphasized anticipating emergencies, practicing contingency plans, and understanding aircraft systems inside and out. But she also taught less tangible skills, leadership, ethical judgment, and self-discipline. "You can know every instrument and every procedure," she would say. "But without calm, focus, and responsibility, skill alone is insufficient." Her programs began to shape a new generation of pilots who viewed aviation as both a technical and moral pursuit. Media coverage amplified her reputation, highlighting not just Flight 482, but the hidden story of her elite Top Gun-inspired training. Audiences were captivated by the blend of civilian heroism and military-level skill. Television specials featured reenactments of Flight 482, interviews with crew members, and analysis by aviation experts. Every segment reinforced the narrative of a pilot whose preparation, instinct, and discipline had saved hundreds of lives. Mia, however, consistently redirected attention to teamwork, mentoring, and preparation, deflecting personal acclaim to the collective effort of crew and training programs. Her humility, paired with undeniable skill, endeared her to the public. Government recognition soon followed. Awards for bravery, technical mastery, and service to aviation were conferred, acknowledging both her Flight 482 heroics and her contributions to pilot training and safety. While some might have been content with a single award, Mia viewed them as a reminder of responsibility rather than personal glory. She continued her rigorous preparation, mentoring programs, and voluntary contributions to safety research. 4. Her recognition was a tool, not an end. It reinforced her mission to elevate standards in aviation and inspire others to strive for mastery. Her story began to influence aviation culture more broadly. Airlines reviewed training protocols, incorporating lessons from her emergency procedures and decision-making frameworks. Safety boards examined her anticipatory methods for broader application. Pilots adopted her approach to mental preparation, situational awareness, and crisis management. In many ways, Mia's influence extended beyond heroism. It reshaped expectations for excellence, composure, and ethical responsibility. In aviation, Flight 482 became more than a single traumatic event. It was a case study, a blueprint for skillful, responsible, and courageous piloting. The military continued to monitor her impact. F-22 pilots who had observed her skill in simulations and exercises spoke publicly of their admiration. Her Top Gun-inspired training, once a secret, was now recognized as a bridge between civilian and military aviation. The collaboration between elite pilots and Mia highlighted the potential for shared knowledge and mutual growth. In this context, Mia's legacy extended beyond a single emergency. She became a symbol of the highest standards of preparation, discipline, and ethical responsibility in aviation. Despite public acclaim, Mia maintained her daily routines. Every flight, even routine ones, was approached with discipline. She reviewed aircraft systems meticulously, rehearsed potential emergency scenarios, and maintained her physical and mental conditioning. These rituals, established long before public recognition, remained her priority. Heroism, she believed, could not be sustained without ongoing preparation. While the nation celebrated her, she focused on the work that had always mattered: mastering the skies, mentoring others, and ensuring that excellence and safety were inseparable in aviation. Mia's personal philosophy began to resonate widely. Through interviews, public speaking, and mentorship programs, she emphasized that heroism was cultivated through preparation, not circumstance. She described the importance of anticipatory thinking, a value of understanding every system, and the integration of technical skill with composure and leadership. Her perspective challenged conventional notions of bravery, showing that true heroism arises from disciplined mastery and ethical responsibility. Audiences, both civilian and professional, were inspired to approach challenges with the same dedication, focus, and moral clarity that Mia exemplified. As her influence grew, Mia also explored new ways to contribute to aviation safety and innovation. She collaborated with engineers to design advanced flight simulation programs, incorporating lessons from her Top Gun-inspired training and Flight 482 experience. These simulations trained pilots to anticipate anomalies, manage complex emergencies, and develop situational awareness. Her work bridged theory and practice, creating tools that enhanced training programs across commercial and military aviation. Through these initiatives, Mia's expertise continued to save lives indirectly, extending her impact far beyond individual flights. Her story also inspired cultural recognition. Documentaries, books, and news features highlighted the convergence of preparation, skill, and heroism. Mia became a symbol of disciplined mastery and ethical responsibility, demonstrating that exceptional ability was the result of rigorous effort and unwavering dedication. Yet despite this visibility, she remained private, focused on substance over spectacle. She understood that legacy was built not on recognition alone, but on lasting contributions, mentorship, and the consistent pursuit of excellence. One of the most profound elements of her legacy was the influence on young aviators, particularly women entering the field. Mia's visibility and expertise challenged stereotypes, showing that skill, composure, and heroism were not bound by gender. Female pilots, inspired by her journey from commercial aviation to elite recognition, found a role model who combined technical mastery with ethical responsibility and humility. Mia's mentorship programs encouraged inclusivity, resilience, and ambition, shaping a new generation of pilots prepared to navigate both routine and emergency situations with confidence and skill. As the nation continued to celebrate her Flight 482 heroics, the broader impact of Mia's work became clear. Airlines improved safety training, pilots adopted advanced decision-making frameworks, and aviation education increasingly emphasized preparation, situational awareness, and ethical responsibility. Mia's influence was systemic, extending beyond individual accolades to reshape standards and expectations across the industry. Her legacy was no longer confined to one dramatic rescue. It had become a blueprint for excellence, inspiring pilots, engineers, students, and aviation professionals nationwide. Mia herself remained grounded. Every recognition, every award, every media appearance was an opportunity to reinforce her philosophy. Preparation, skill, composure, and ethical responsibility were inseparable. She emphasized that heroism was the product of continuous learning, deliberate practice, and a deep commitment to preserving life. Her message resonated not just in aviation, but across disciplines. Success without preparation and integrity was hollow, and true mastery required relentless effort and moral clarity. Her life, meticulously disciplined and rigorously trained, now served as a living testament to the intersection of preparation and action. Flight 482 was a pivotal moment, but her ongoing work ensured that her influence extended far beyond a single event. Mia's daily routines, mentorship, collaborations with military and commercial pilots, and contributions to safety and innovation created a lasting legacy. She demonstrated that heroism, skill, and ethical responsibility could coexist, and that disciplined preparation allowed extraordinary action to emerge naturally when circumstances demanded it. By the time the media turned attention to her Top Gun-inspired background, her reputation was already firmly established. F-22 pilots, military analysts, and aviation experts had already recognized the depth of her skill. The public was beginning to understand that her heroism was not merely instinctive courage, but the culmination of years of disciplined training, anticipation, and ethical responsibility. Mia's story became both an inspiration and a model. One could achieve excellence not by chance, but by consistent preparation, skill, and a commitment to serving others. Mia Carson's legacy was now fully visible. She bridged commercial and military aviation, influenced national safety standards, inspired young pilots, and reshaped public understanding of heroism. Flight 482 remained the defining moment that brought her abilities to the forefront. But the invisible scaffolding of training, discipline, and ethical responsibility ensured her influence endured. She had transformed not only lives in the air, but the culture of aviation itself, leaving a permanent mark on the industry and the nation. And as she gazed out at the skies each day, Mia reflected quietly on the journey that had brought her here from childhood fascination to commercial mastery, from elite secret training to national recognition. Every flight, every lesson, and every decision was part of a continuum of preparation and responsibility. Her legacy was not merely a story to be told, but a standard to be lived. She had shown the world that heroism is crafted, not spontaneous, and that excellence, discipline, and ethical clarity can guide ordinary people to extraordinary deeds. Years had passed since Flight 482, but the story of Mia Carson remained alive in the hearts and minds of those she had inspired. The dramatic rescue had cemented her place in aviation history, yet her true legacy extended far beyond that singular moment. Every life she had saved, every pilot she had mentored, and every innovation she had contributed to aviation safety formed a web of influence that stretched across the nation. Mia understood that heroism was not an event. It was a continuous commitment to mastery, preparation, and responsibility. Even as the accolades continued to arrive, Mia remained steadfastly grounded. Her home and schedule reflected a disciplined simplicity. Early mornings spent reviewing flight manuals, evenings in mentorship and reflection, and weekends dedicated to training simulations and research on aviation safety. Fame, she knew, could easily become a distraction. True influence, she believed, came from sustained effort, meticulous preparation, and a quiet focus on excellence. Flight 482 had brought her notoriety, but it was her everyday choices, habits, and standards that defined her enduring legacy. Mentorship programs she had initiated evolved into formalized curricula adopted by aviation schools across the country. These programs emphasized a philosophy Mia had cultivated over decades. Technical mastery must coexist with anticipatory decision-making, ethical responsibility, and composure under pressure. Students learned not only to operate aircraft, but also to cultivate calm, confidence, and foresight. Lessons included simulated emergencies, crew communication strategies, and moral decision-making exercises. For Mia, developing the next generation of pilots was as important as any heroic act she had ever performed. Her influence reached beyond commercial aviation. Military programs began integrating civilian-trained insights into tactical exercises, acknowledging the value of her experience bridging both realms. F-22 pilots who had trained alongside her cited her as a standard of excellence and ingenuity, demonstrating that structured preparation, discipline, and foresight could produce performance on par with the most elite aviators. Mia's secret Top Gun-inspired training, once hidden, became a benchmark for collaboration and knowledge sharing between civilian and military sectors. Also contributed to aviation technology, collaborating with engineers to improve safety systems and simulation software. Her practical insights shaped algorithms for emergency response, cockpit management, and predictive analysis of flight anomalies. The simulators she helped design trained thousands of pilots in anticipating and responding to potential emergencies, translating her experience into tools that enhanced safety for millions. In this way, Mia's impact became exponential. One pilot's preparation now informed an entire generation of aviators, creating a ripple effect that extended globally. Despite her achievements, Mia retained a deep sense of humility. She continually reminded students and colleagues that heroism was a byproduct of preparation, not instinct alone. Every scenario, every emergency drill, and every lesson was an opportunity to reinforce discipline, observation, and ethical judgment. Skill without responsibility, she often said, is dangerous. Mastery is about ensuring safety, leadership, and foresight. Her words resonated not just with pilots, but with professionals across fields who recognized the universal value of her philosophy. The public continued to celebrate her story, but Mia consistently redirected focus toward collective effort. Flight attendants, co-pilots, engineers, and even air traffic controllers were acknowledged as critical participants in every successful operation. Mia's leadership was inclusive. She believed that heroism was shared, that preparation was collective, and that every individual in aviation contributed to safety and success. Her humility and emphasis on teamwork became a defining aspect of her reputation, inspiring respect and loyalty in every professional she mentored. Her influence also extended into culture and media. Documentaries, books, and interviews explored not just the rescue, but her preparation, discipline, and philosophy. Audiences were captivated by the idea that heroism was a cultivated skill, not merely a spontaneous act. Mia became a symbol of disciplined mastery, proving that extraordinary performance emerges from deliberate practice, ethical responsibility, and unwavering composure. Her story inspired countless aspiring pilots, many of whom credited her with shaping their approach to aviation and life. Perhaps most profound was her role in empowering women in aviation. As one of the few female pilots to achieve such prominence, Mia became a role model and mentor for countless women entering the field. She emphasized that ability, discipline, and courage were not bound by gender. Her success, coupled with her mentorship and visibility, encouraged a new generation of female pilots to pursue excellence confidently and fearlessly. In doing so, Mia transformed not only aviation safety standards, but also cultural perceptions of who could excel in the skies. As the years progressed, Mia remained committed to her daily routines, understanding that preparation never ended. Each flight, each lesson, and each mentorship session reinforced her principles. The discipline that had enabled her to save 236 lives on Flight 482 was now embedded into the lives of thousands of pilots who had trained under her guidance. Her legacy was both tangible and intangible. Procedures, curricula, and policies on one hand, and a culture of excellence, ethical responsibility, and calm resilience on the other. She also took time for reflection, acknowledging that her life's work had been a balance of preparation and action. While the dramatic rescue was celebrated, it was her decades of disciplined training and commitment to others that defined her. Mia often returned to the balcony of her apartment at sunset, gazing at the horizon she had once dreamed about as a child building model planes. The same skies that had inspired fascination now symbolized responsibility, mastery, and the lives entrusted to her expertise. Mia's story became an enduring case study in leadership and heroism. Aviation schools, corporate leadership programs, and military academies used her experiences to illustrate the integration of skill, preparation, and ethical responsibility. Her actions showed that exceptional performance requires more than courage. It requires foresight, continuous learning, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. She had transformed heroism from an isolated act into a philosophy that could guide generations of professionals, pilots, and leaders alike. Even as new generations entered aviation, Mia's principles continued to guide them. Her methods of anticipatory decision-making, meticulous preparation, and mental rehearsal became industry standards. Her influence was both systemic and personal. Systemic in reshaping safety protocols and pilot training, and personal in the mentorship and inspiration she provided. The cumulative effect was profound. One pilot's disciplined approach to life and work had elevated standards, saved lives, and inspired countless others to pursue mastery with integrity. Her Top Gun-inspired background, Once secret was now acknowledged as part of her legacy. Military and civilian aviation communities recognized that her success bridged realms, showing how disciplined preparation in elite environments could translate into extraordinary performance in real-world scenarios. Mia's journey illustrated that heroism was transferable, that excellence could cross boundaries, and that the skills cultivated in secrecy could create public impact when applied with integrity. As her career entered its later stages, Mia reflected on the interconnectedness of her life's work. Flight 482 had been a pivotal moment, but the years of preparation, mentorship, collaboration, and disciplined practice defined her true legacy. She had shown that heroism was cumulative, arising from countless choices, hours, and lessons, rather than a single dramatic act. Her influence on pilots, engineers, students, and the public ensured that her philosophy would endure, guiding others long after her own flights had concluded. In quiet moments, she considered the lives she had touched, the students she had mentored, and the professionals who had adopted her methods. The scale of her influence was remarkable, yet she remained humble. Recognition was secondary to impact. The true reward was knowing that her work had saved lives, elevated standards, and inspired others to pursue excellence. She had transformed personal preparation into national legacy, individual skill into systemic influence, and a private commitment into a public model of heroism. Mia Carson's final flights, though routine in execution, were imbued with the wisdom, skill, and discipline accumulated over decades. Every maneuver reflected anticipation, mastery, and ethical judgment. Every interaction with crew, co-pilot, and passengers reinforced her principles of leadership and responsibility. She had become a symbol not merely of courage, but of sustained excellence, showing that heroism is cultivated through preparation, humility, and an unwavering commitment to others. Her story was ultimately a testament to the transformative power of dedication. From a small-town girl fascinated by the skies to a commercial pilot capable of saving hundreds from secret elite training to recognition by the nation and military, Mia had exemplified the convergence of talent, preparation, and moral responsibility. Her life's work had created ripples that extended far beyond her own flights, shaping aviation culture, standards, and the careers of countless others. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the skies in shades of gold and crimson, Mia stood quietly, reflecting on a life spent mastering the skies, mentoring others, and ensuring that preparation, skill, and ethical responsibility guided every action. Her legacy was enduring, not defined by a single heroic moment, but by decades of discipline, foresight, and courage. Mia Carson had shown the world that true heroism is never accidental. It is meticulously prepared, quietly cultivated, and purposefully applied, leaving a mark that lasts far longer than any headline or award.